This is the Chase Bliss Audio Thermae, and it's absurdly good. Here's how it sounds. So now that you've heard some sounds, I'm going to tell you what the Thermae is, how it works, and why I love it, and subsequently think it's absurdly good. I'll start with a brief overview of how the pedal works. I'm not going to get into all of the dip switches and some of the more complicated features because those have already been really extensively documented and covered in great detail by Chase Bliss Audio, and I recommend you to check out the manual on their website. So what is Thermae? The Thermae is an analog delay and pitch shifter, and it works in a really unique and effective way. Let's set everything to neutral on the Thermae so we can just hear how the delay sounds before I explain how the pitch shifting works. So that's the delay sound. It has a really nice low pass filter. It has a little bit of resonance there too, which is great. The mix knob works like a mix knob, fully wet, fully dry. And then we have a regen knob, which increases the feedback of the delay. This interacts with the low pass filter because there is some resonance, so you can get it to self-oscillate. And the glide control coincides with these different interval knobs, which we'll get into. So how the Thermae achieves its pitch shifting is really cool. It uses mathematical intervals to increase or decrease the delay time, subsequently producing a specific harmony to the original note by how the delay is altered. You know how if you have an analog delay and you change the delay time, it basically smushes up the delay signal and makes it zip either higher or lower, depending on if you make the delay time faster or slower? That's exactly what the Thermae is doing. But it tunes this to certain intervals. I'm not sure if you can see these, but I will include a picture so you can look at the different intervals on the knobs. So I'm just going to latch a single note. So here you can see that the delay is timed. And as I start to change this interval, you can hear it goes from fourths to fifths to octaves to even higher intervals, up to 2 octaves. You'll also probably hear that even though we're set to go high, the interval is also dropping lower, and that's because in order to get back down to the original delay speed set by the Thermae, it has to downshift that interval. So it almost acts as a sequencer in that way. And we'll do the opposite if we go down. But it goes down first. And here we are with no delay interval. What's super fun though is when you bring in the second interval, because the Thermae will shift from the first interval to the second interval and then back down to the default delay time, which is set by the tap tempo. So it goes to the first interval, to the second interval, and then whatever it takes to mathematically shift down to the default tap tempo. And this gets really fun when you add in the regen. This is just a single note being played. And I can play a chord now. There's my dry signal. And here I'm blending in the wet. So you can see how things can get real fun real fast. And here's where the glide knob comes in. It's basically a portamento for the delay shifting. It can get subtle, it can get intense, to the point of just kind of roaming around aimlessly. Which is fun for some chorusing effects. So now that I've kind of explained how it works, why do I like it so much? Pitch shifting delay isn't a unique feature or characteristic of a pedal, but I personally think that the characteristic of the sound is something really special and unique, which is something that I find in all of Chase Bliss's pedals, to be honest. It just has this sound character that really coincides well with the whole lineup. Even the really clear and clean settings have this inherent lo-fi characteristic, but it's still super hi-fi. It doesn't sound bad or sort of patched together. It sounds super intentional. And one thing that I love about it is if you get really slow delay times involved. Slow it down even more. You get this really great aliasing as those analog delay chips get pushed to their limits. It sounds so fantastic to my ears, at least. And the crazier you get with the intervals, the more intense that aliasing becomes. When it has to drop down super low. I personally think that's such a cool effect. I think that multi-effects pedals are a really great tool for learning about different effects, but at the end of the day, I'm a huge sucker for really sort of niche specific tasks that can only be accomplished by a certain thing. And I think the Thermae definitely falls into that category of having a voice of its own. It's one of those things that you don't really get to play. It kind of plays your music for you, but you have to kind of nudge it in the right direction and set it up to work for you. The Thermae does have another unique mode, and you can turn that on with the dip switch. And I'm, again, not going to go over all of these, but if you flip up step mode, the Thermae starts to operate a bit differently. Turn Thermae on. And now what happens is this switch acts as an advancement for the step sequencer instead of acting as tap tempo. So it jumps to the intervals. Interval 1, interval 2. And then back down to the bass tap tempo, which, if you can remember, was very slow. And if you want to get that sound of the two intervals combined that you get with the sequencer, just press the button in rapid succession. Again, really easy to get super wacky and carried away. I just thought that was worth noting because it kind of changes the functionality of the pedal and is a good use for like playing maybe with guitar when you want to have more controlled chaos if you're playing in a band setting, for example. It's fantastic and it's fun and it's a bit complicated, but once it sort of clicks, it's really easy to use. A bit of a story, I actually had a Thermae. I bought it the day that it came out, but I'm an idiot, so I sold it because that's what happens when you're into gear. You buy it and you sell it, smile and you cry. But I was happy with all of the sampled content that I had from it and kind of stretched that pretty far. As I stopped playing in a band and got more into making electronic music, I realized that it would actually be a super great tool to have, but they kind of started disappearing. Chip shortages, parts shortages. They're hard to find, and people are reselling them on Reverb for way more than the retail price and way more than what it's worth, in my opinion. But I was in Boston this weekend for a concert, and I randomly walked into a music shop that I used to go to when I used to live there to get a pair of earplugs. And I was just kind of killing time and moseying around the store and checked out the guitar pedal section and saw the Thermae on the shelf. And I was not planning to buy a new Chase Bliss pedal, but I saw it and I just felt like I couldn't pass up the opportunity. And I'm so happy that I did. You will definitely be hearing a ton of this in my music. If you're into guitar pedals or effects and you're not familiar with Chase Bliss's lineup, I urge you to go check them out. I have a little video demo on the Mood as well, which I bought and sold just because it was fun to have and experiment with, but it ended up not really being for me. If the homies from Chase Bliss are watching this, you're the best. Your stuff rocks. It makes me super happy. But yeah, enough about my experience. I hope you enjoyed the sounds. I'll catch y'all next week. Peace.